What's up, guys? Welcome to the Score eSports podcast, and I am Josh Burry. I am hosting this episode of the Score eSports podcast.
What?
I know, it's crazy. Here in the studio with me, Gabriel Zoltan Johan.
Who are you and what did you do with Colin?
I put him on paid leave, if you know what I'm saying.
A classic.
The coup was bound to happen sooner or later.
And who is that voice? We are joined.
The coup master.
We are joined by supervising editor Sean Wetzlar in his debut podcast appearance.
Hello,
You can see the sweat forming on his
yeah,
forehead
it's a
as it
stressful
happens.
time. How does it in this room?
How does it feel to be here in the hot seat? That is Colin's seat, actually.
That is-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been planning to sort of take over Colin's job and life over a long period of time, so this is good. This is the first start.
This is like the Iron Throne.
yeah, exactly.
Right now.
That's actually incredible because you worked here before he did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
you were,
true.
somehow the master plan was to know where he was going to work and then get it. I don't know.
Well,
That's
I've been
crazy.
playing the long game.
Well, evidently, everything. It's all the stuff past 20 minutes that matters, right?
That's true. That's
So
true.
we've been told.
Anyways, we've got a pretty great show lined up for you guys. Obviously, League Worlds has finished, and spoilers, it wasn't SKT that came away with the win.
Finally.
I think it's crazy myself, but we're going to get into that with our guest. We have quite the personality here for you today. In just a moment, I'm going to bring him on in a sec. We're going to be speaking with YamatoCannon, and this is the second time I've spoken to him. Really excited. And you guys might have seen some of the work he's done during Worlds, right, Gabe?
Yes. So he got to review literally every single Worlds game, which honestly, all power to him. Lots of dedication to do that. Let alone not just watch every game, but really like painstakingly review every game. I think that's really a labor of love to do that, especially in honestly like such a fucking boring meta.
Sean Wetzlar, hot take about VOD review. Could you do what YamatoCannon did?
I could never do what YamatoCannon did. I would get bored.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hate VOD review. I won't even review VODs for games that I'm really passionate
like.
about. Like, I won't do it. I'm sorry. Just, it's terrible. I'll just use the Score eSports app and look up the scores that way. You know? Yeah, there you go. But anyways, I think it's about time that we get YamatoCannon on here. So, because honestly, at this point, I'm just selflessly plugging ourselves. And that's just terrible. So, Yamato, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you.
Hey.
Perfect. Welcome to the podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time to spend a little bit of your time and energy talking about League of Legends. There's a lot to talk about right now, so really eager to get your opinion on that.
Thank you for having me.
Gabe, you want to lead us off here?
Yeah, let's start with, we kind of like bantered a bit about it, but let's start with this kind of overarching review of every single Worlds game of 2017 Worlds. I think personally, because you also, to my understanding, you also did play-in stages, right?
I did 2 games for the playing stages. That's where I kind of recognized that I want to do something crazy. Just I commit to the idea of doing every single game, and there was a time when I regretted it, but
Was it like specific games that really just grinded you down?
it was more about like getting used to the sleeping schedule. Was crazy hard.
Oh yeah.
And there was like a time where like I was up, and usually my sleep schedule was till 3, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna try to stay up. And then that was the most stupidest idea that I've ever done. And then I was like reviewing on staying up for like 30 hours straight and just reviewing. And I realized how I was like, in the middle of it, I was like freezing up. Like, when you're tired and you just kind of freeze up and you want to you're almost like freezing in time. I recognized this was happening to me, but that I could deal with. Sleeping schedule was easy to fix, and enough rest was easy to supply. But the hardest part about it was that my lungs were incredibly strained. I think I had like acute bronchitis at one point.
Oh, wow.
And I just kept going because I don't know. I've taught myself to be sick later because like in esports you can't really be sick. So usually like at the end of a season, like I'm just sick for 2 weeks straight because I'm like I need to go to work, because if I miss a day, then our entire team misses a day. So
right.
I have that skill, to push sickness forward, to stagger it in some sense. So it worked out, even though I had problems with my talking and I lost my voice a lot, and like I sounded as if I smoked for 50 years at one point. But you know, it was fun. You know, I love to do challenges, and I love to do like crazy things. I am proud of what I did. You know, I forgot one game, but I'm gonna do that eventually. And it's the Fenerbahce G2
Which
game.
game did you forget?
It was the Yasuo game. The group was already decided.
Gotcha.
The group was already decided, so I decided to go for a breather. You know, I decided to just relax a bit, and then a lot of the Fenerbahce fans were very proud of their performance against Samsung, so I had to do that game. But all in all, you know, that game I'm gonna save it for a special day, maybe.
Well, I admire the dedication. I think we all do, and they are very informative videos as well. Our understanding too is that the proceeds, whatever monetization happens with these videos, is going to charity, right?
Yeah. Like, you know, it isn't like a super big thing, right? Because the YouTube monetization is acting up strange. There was a lot of companies that claimed my footage and my content because I don't know. I think there's a lot of scavenging, like rats working around YouTube, just claiming shit just to mess things up. And that happened to me very frequently, so it was kind of a battle. But you know, it isn't a big deal. You know, the revenue from YouTube isn't that big, so I'm not really happy with the amount that it amounted to. It was about $350. So I want to do some kind of, you know, some kind of live stream thing where I try to gather more, because you know, in the end, you know, I've thought a lot. This is going to go pretty deep into how I am as a person, but I like to think that. We're all connected somehow, and you know, let's say I heard this in some kind of YouTube video, but I heard, you know, the idea that let's say you meet 1,000 people during your lifetime, and these people meet 1,000 people, and all of a sudden you're somehow connected to 1 million people, and then if these people meet 1,000, then all of a sudden you're connected all over the place. And I think if we can spread goods and even something as simple as a smile towards a person, then I feel like this is the purpose for everyone on Earth. I feel like we're all connected somehow, and we are supposed to push each other to be happier and to be healthier and to be better in every way possible. So I'm just in some way trying to give back.
Man, you know, I came here for League of Legends, and I left with some serious life lessons, man. Oh, I know you talked about contributing to charity. Do you know the charity that you're planning to contribute, and like what kind of cause you're kind of paying it forward to?
It's like usually I'm very decisive about things, but this has been super difficult. I haven't really decided yet. I feel like it's the right thing to do to kind of let the community decide. So I'm doing like this AMA now on Friday. I don't know when you guys are posting this. I don't even know if it's live. But I'm doing. I just want to make sure that the community participates somehow, because it's so difficult. You know, every cause is speaking to me. I read about poverty and like in countries that have worse off. I read about countries that don't have enough drinking water, and then there's all this type of research for diseases that cause all the problems for people. There's also, you know, the care for the environment and wildlife, etc. There's so many great things to push towards, and I feel like it feels wrong for me to choose, you know. So I feel like this is a thing that I want to kind of make kind of a poll of some sort, where I decide together with the community, hopefully, what is the kind of thing that drives the community the most.
I don't want to get too into the weeds here, Yamato, but do you have like a specific philosophy that you adhere to? Because some of the things that you said kind of sound a little bit stoic to me, like in the classical sense of stoicism, because like there's like sort of this idea that people are supposed to be social, and they're supposed to be good to each other, because that's like the natural way that people are supposed to be, basically, in that like philosophy. Do you have like sort of an overarching philosophy that's driving your views here, or is this just like experience, basically?
I think, you know, our purpose, or I think my purpose in life is to become as good as I can be in every aspect of it. So when it comes to the social aspect, I don't think necessarily that you need to I need to go socialize with all people. Not necessarily this. It's more about, you know, if I do in fact socialize with people, how can I affect them positively? How can I be like patient? How can I be, you know, respectful and understanding? And, you know, I recognize that with coaching, specifically, I recognize that that's a big part of it. Understanding your players and showing empathy and everything. And I think this is a part of it, in a sense that I personally want to improve myself in anything. So that is how I interact with people, how I interact with my parents, with people, or if it's something simple as, improve myself in a sense that I do things that are healthy, like I work out, I eat better, or anything in that regard. Because I think this is the mindset that has brought civilization forward. The thing that we always strive to improve ourselves, and I always try to find ways where, there are a lot of things that we cannot control, right? And the one thing we can control is how we think about things, how we approach things, and I like to just learn from our mistakes, accept that I'm going to do them, and be not afraid to do them, and just try to improve myself in every part of it.
Sure. Well, I mean, you mentioned coaching and how a lot of this works into sort of your philosophy when it comes to the work that you've done. And I guess we've got to ask, what's next for you? Are you looking for more coaching jobs heading into the new season? Can you
have you found one already?
Yeah.
Yeah. So currently, like, I am contracted with Vitality for the upcoming year. So my plan, or what I'm doing right now, and what's keeping me very busy, is planning for the off season, which is going to be an absolute party. Everyone's invited, and, it's going to be absolutely crazy. So I've researched players, and it's like in the darkest pits of solo queue to I don't know, to the top tier players. I'm looking all over the place to make as many plans as possible, because it's hard to predict what will happen in the off season. Let's say all the players that I want to work with all of a sudden get bought out, and let's say Japan gets an influx of money. You never know. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's hard to predict what's exactly going to happen. So it's all about just being as prepared as you can be. It's about bringing a safety vest to the storm, right? And hopefully, I have a very good feeling, because Vitality has they've been very ambitious past years. They've had some plans that didn't work out, but it hasn't really deterred them from the idea of them wanting to be very successful. And now this time around, I get to be a part of the roster and creating the roster. And I always feel really good about coming into a team knowing that I'm going to work with this team for a full year. Because, when I worked with Spice for a full year, I think we achieved a lot of success. And, with Micho Makers, I worked half a split, or not half a split, but a full split. Rock had also a full split. And I can always feel like if we had more time, or if we worked together for a longer period of time, I feel like we could have done so much more. And in this case, I get to have a lot of impact on what players we get, and I'm super excited for the upcoming season too. So to answer your question, yes, I have a coaching job, and I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue coaching for a lot of years. That's for sure.
I kind of want to bridge the discussion of kind of what you're pursuing to, what you've done in the past. You have attended Worlds as a coach, and now you've kind of experienced not attending Worlds as a coach. What was it like, kind of sitting on the sidelines in a sense for this year after experiencing Worlds, for the first time, and experiencing it in general last year?
Yeah, and specifically, how does it compare to being there? That's the thing I really want to know, like to actually be on that stage.
Being there versus like sitting and watching, right?
So it's a bit crazy, but the way I view it, it's as if you play like let's say you're playing a platform game, these old school platform games, and there's no save. It's like you lose your lives and then you have to start over.
Yeah.
And it feels like you are playing this platform game, getting yourself to playoffs. That's like one level, and then continuing, and
Which one's the water level?
Oh, the water level. I don't think anything. I don't think anything is that bad. Has there ever been a water level that has been fun?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you remind me. I recently started playing Kingdom Hearts again, and it's just ruins my mind. But then again, to make that comparison, of course, you kind of wanna continue from where you left off, right? It's like I want to get out of groups. That is like the next thing that I'm hungry for, because anything less than that isn't as satisfying. But then again, the way you have to view it is that you're starting over. Like when you are entering a new team or entering a new atmosphere or any dynamic, you are in a sense starting over. You're starting over and you're bringing all your experience, and the big difference is from the get-go you are there in the moment with all of that experience. So you can take a look, reflect, what would you have done differently, what did you do wrong, what could have been improved, what could have been different, and that is always how I view it. So this world's journey, there was a lot of things that I knew that I can do different, and a lot of things that I learned from. And regardless of my thoughts about wanting to be in quarters or whatever, you have to view it in a way that, when you join a new team, you're starting over, and you have to just rebuild in that sense. And this time around, I was one split with Splice. We didn't meet our expectations. We fell through on the 5th game against Misfits in quarters, which was very close. Who knows if that 5th game, if something would have been different. Most likely not, because I felt like it was time for me to flip the next page. And then with Vitality, I feel like if we had more time, we also could have accomplished great things, because when we were playing in the end, we were looking quite crisp, we were looking a lot better, and we solved a lot of the problems and the wounds that were carried on from the spring split. So all in all, I'm not bitter about the fact that I'm on the sideline. I understand in the end that this is how it's supposed to be, and I always just tend to view it in a way that it's a new project. I try to apply what I've learned, and then once again just become better through the experience of going through another split in Vitality.
Interesting. That's a good a good way to summarize this is you're on your new game plus now, right? That's
pretty much
fit the analogy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I guess I wanted to maybe shift gears a little bit to talk about what we saw at Worlds generally.
Yeah.
And first off, before we get into it, I got to go to bat for my friend Gabe here.
Oh, here we go.
So we did a predictions article before Worlds, and Gabe put, and I saw the draft. I will vouch for him 100%.
Thank you, Josh.
Gabe said Samsung is going to win.
Yeah.
And the other man in this room, that is not me or Gabe, this man, Sean Wetzlar, made him change it.
Okay.
He made him.
Goodness.
Okay,
He
no,
did.
listen.
He made him change it because he said, "Do you really think?"
Whoa.
Okay, you can defend yourself now.
I feel
That is, but this is all accurate.
This all happened, and I've not exaggerated anything. This all happened exactly the way I said it. Sean Wetzlar,
Okay.
defend yourself, sir.
Listen. I feel like I'm being unfairly attacked here. Before we made the staff picks article, we all sat down and we talked.
Yeah.
And we agreed that the overall favorite coming into the tournament, right, was Longzhu.
I didn't agree with that,
For,
but okay.
For a majority or a lot of analysts, there was a very obvious argument to be made that
For
Longzhu
Longzhu.
were favored, right?
Yeah.
We've seen them defeat SKT in the finals. We've seen them match up to the best in the world. Their individual mechanics looked incredible. And a lot of people were saying Longzhu looked like the favorites. When we all sat down to write the staff picks article, Josh wrote SKT and I wrote SKT. And the logic literally comes down to we were unwilling to put in print that SKT would not win. But Gabe, who is a Samsung homeboy,
yeah, I'm a
just
big Samsung fan.
puts down Samsung, and I asked him why, and he said because Samsung are going to win. And that
Well,
was
no, I had actual genuine reasons.
you had
but-
reasons. All I said was that somebody should acknowledge that Longzhu are the favorites, and you agreed to switch. I didn't force this on you. I didn't. Man,
But yeah,
I agreed with.
villain of
I
the
agreed.
office
I
here.
agreed to switch because of the needs of the publication. But I always thought that
heart.
it was going to be Samsung.
in your heart,
in my heart of hearts.
yeah. So Yamato, what did you think before this tournament began? Like maybe even after play-ins, like what did you think was actually going to happen in this tournament? Who did you have pegged as the winner?
Like I was expecting Longzhu to like I had a different take of what I expected the meta to be. Like I thought we would see a lot of like Jace, which we did, right? To some degree, like the players that actually played Jace, it was just permabanned from them, right? So to some degree, I was accurate, but I was expecting like a harder shift towards the Khan meta, where people would play more Trundle, maybe potentially throw in a Fiora, or in this type of fashion, which we also saw. Like we saw the Cannon and we saw the Jace, but I was expecting a harder shift towards that, and I completely missed the fact that Longzhu in the end, even though they beat SKT, it was an SKT that was out of shape. And it was also the only best of 5 Longzhu has ever played together.
Yes.
So this was something that went under the radar for a lot of people, because in all honesty, beating SK Telecom is an accomplishment in the fashion that they did, right? So not to take anything away from them, but I think this was something that was overlooked for a lot of people. I overlooked it, that, they still in the end have 3 rookies and phenomenal rookies. And I think they will be, they will bounce back no problem from this. And I think, in all honesty, I thought Longzhu were looking at the favorite, especially, after the group stage. I also thought so, because they were really diverse in their play. And I think, they responded to a lot of the whack stuff that the Gigabyte Marines threw at them with ease. Yes. And they were just dissecting Immortals and Fnatic
especially
very carefully.
Fnatic. Especially Fnatic.
And then, in all honesty, that group was pretty bad,
Sure.
if you look back at it.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah, I'm shameless. I 100% thought SK was going to SK Telecom T1. I don't know why I said SK. Sorry. I 100% thought they were going to win, because I just couldn't see them losing. And that to me is like such a scary thing, when you can look at a team and be like, how could they lose though? They win. That's what they do.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the end, we did see their weaknesses like exploited in a lot of
They were
ways.
exposed all through the bracket stage,
Yes.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Even the group stage, they against like tougher competition like EDG, really kind of put them against the ropes on both weeks.
Yeah.
I thought they looked really shaky. They looked really shaky, in summer going into playoffs too. Like even before Worlds, they looked pretty bad, honestly. And it took Faker playing out of his mind, in my opinion, to really like carry them to finals the way that they got there.
Series, yeah.
I think when it comes to SK Telecom, I thought after what they showed in group, I thought there was no chance they would win.
Yeah.
I thought RNG would beat them, and I think stylistically RNG fit very well against them. But MLXG decided to do some things,
Some things. Yeah.
And that was a game that was wide open until RNG kind of choked in draft, and also MLXG getting caught in Tribush up top. But this was something that RNG also showed against EDG. I think in the final, the LPL final, I think RNG also was the better team. It was just that they screwed up in draft and dropped the ball over there.
And Uzi got caught all the time in that game. Game 5. I remember that.
Yeah, game 5, but like in general, I think Uzi's performance was good. I think that the main thing was that they lost because of, Uzi was playing Ezreal 2 games, and it's like, sure, you won a game on Ezreal, but that was a complete whack game.
Yeah.
And then, Scout LeBlanc was something that they just didn't know how to deal with. People are getting caught. It's like they're walking on fishnets over there in LPL.
I guess I'm really like, what? Games just losing. I guess I'm like a storylines guy in a way, because I saw the first EDG game, the SKT EDG game in the group stage, and I saw them down 10k gold or more
with the comeback.
And the casters were saying this is the kind of gold deficit that you can't win a team fight, and B, even if you could, it's not clear that you would even still like be able to turn it around, right?
Yeah.
And then they just did it. They just did it. As soon as Cash was like, I don't know, this is looking pretty bad, they're like, you know what? Here's a huge combo. Here's a wombo combo that just
it's like they heard them, and they're like, you think so? Huh?
And for me, that was actually, even though it was a really shaky game, and you should never have to be in that position where you're down 10k gold, and you win a team fight, it's like seeing them do that would like almost made them stronger to me. Like I was like, no, they can't be killed. They can't be killed. Look, they can't. But I guess in the end, it's like not. You can't play so many games as you play at Worlds, and then always bank on that edge
and
factor
not get
in every game.
exposed.
No,
like,
yeah, you couldn't talk about that series going into it and say, oh, SKT is going to be down 10k gold every game against Samsung, but there's going to be a crazy combo. Like that was never going to happen. But Yamato, I actually wanted to ask you, because I've been thinking a lot about this. What do you think this means for sort of the future of the Korean scene? Because so many people are calling this the end of the SKT era, right? This is the end. They didn't get the three-peat. They've had basically 3 years of dominance internationally. Do you think that the organization bounces back from this and comes back in 2018 stronger?
How would they do that too?
Or do you think that this is the beginning of a new chapter for Korea, and that we're going to see maybe some different teams start to find a lot of success there?
So, so first I want to assess, like at the World Championship, both the junglers were heavily underperforming, and Bang was also heavily underperforming, like really, really heavily. Like they were outshined by their counterparts, like really, really hard. In group stage, maybe it was okay, but they were heavily underperforming. This was not SKT standard. I think what is happening right here is that SKT is pissed. SKT is going to be freaking pissed. I think unless, the entire team jumps ship, I think SKT as an organization still have, the opportunity to pick and choose whoever the hell they want on the team. And I think coming into the next season, they're going to come in with a roster that's going to be scarier than before. I think some replacements will happen for sure. And when that day comes, people will be like, holy moly, look at that SKT roster. I wouldn't be surprised if they, for example, I don't know, bring in SCORE and they bring in, I don't know if they maybe fly, maybe they bring bring in Uzi in or something. I don't know.
The first import.
Of course.
That would be insane, actually.
I doubt that's going to happen, but I feel like they have their choice of players. Maybe Praying Gorilla goes over there or something, It's very hard to speculate, but I feel like SKT's history, not only in League of Legends, but across other branches of esports too, I think they've always been a force to be reckoned with. And this is going to just, people have awoken the dragon, so to speak. And, it didn't take long after, SK Telecom won Worlds, and then Season 4, they dropped out. They came back swinging, and they were angry. And they made a lot of changes, and it's all about just trusting the management of SK Telecom. And at the same time, they have some fierce ass competition. So I don't think it's going to be like clear cut. SKT is going to come back and eat everyone alive. I think SK Telecom is, Samsung, their third game. They did something incredible with the roster. People were like thinking like, what the hell is this? Samsung to relegation, that far. And they maintained faith in these players, and I think. Hopefully these players will repay that loyalty with staying around, and hopefully we'll have a longer era of Samsung instead of one that just deteriorates and everyone just gets like a magnet attracted to metal, just run towards money.
Well, yeah, and you do have to give Samsung some credit, because I feel like we've been falling into a trap that a lot of people have fallen into after this Worlds. Yeah, and I'm guilty of it too. Everyone is talking about SKT losing and Longzhu losing, and how surprising that is. No one is talking about Samsung dropping one game in the bracket stage and 3-0ing both of the Korean teams that everybody thought were stronger than them.
Yes,
even after the group stage.
And who else did they 3-0? KT Rolster on their way to attending Worlds.
That's true.
They have dummied every other Korean team in this particular meta at the tail end of the year. So,
yeah, last year we had a situation where after Worlds, everyone said SKT is clearly the best team in the world, and every best of 5 between Korean teams last year went to 5 games.
Yeah, and
we have so much dominance from Samsung, and I do think a lot of people are correctly pointing to problems that other teams have had, and talking about how did Longzhu go wrong, how did SKT go wrong, but you have to give credit to Samsung. They played the patch really well, I think, especially after group stage. They adapted, they came in and they played to their strengths, and You can't say that they didn't deserve this win or that they weren't, the strongest team.
I think the issue for a lot of people is that it is very true that Samsung played very well. I'm not trying to take that away from anybody, but it's very clear that the SK Telecom we saw is not what we're used to seeing, and that is where that comes from. I'm not saying it's justified, but
let me pose this question to everyone and to Yamato especially. Do you think that this World Championship actually crowned the best team in the world then? Because it's from like everyone's doubts about talking about like underperformance of other teams and stuff. Like, do you guys think like we got the best team in the world out of this tournament?
I think we did. I'm just going to leave it at that.
I think for sure. I think SKT, they had players that were complacent. They were playing less. There was some drama here and there. And, if you have players on a roster that, on SK Telecom that are complacent, changes need to happen. And usually SKT were very quick to do so, and they weren't afraid of putting players on the chopping block. And people sometimes were shocked by the fact that happened. But time and time again, they proved to us that they made correct decisions. And this is a one-time thing for SKT where they made some wrong decisions. Sure, you could argue that Season 4, they also made some wrong decisions, but, they're going to bounce back. And in the end, what SK Telecom has accomplished, it's unheard of. It's insane what they did, knowing that they've won 3 World Championships. Expecting to win 4 is natural because of the dominant streak that they've had. But in all seriousness, what they've accomplished, no one's going to come close to this. Or sure, Samsung is quite close with the two victories, but in theory, it's still incredible what they did. And maybe it takes 1 year, maybe it takes 2 years for them to come back to that same form. But they still have, Koma knows the recipe to success. SKT knows the recipe for success within league. And I don't think, in this time around, they made mistakes. Not mistakes, it's bad to call them mistakes. They just made, they had players that were underperforming, and that was the product of their team. After years' work, this was the product. And that is what Worlds is about. Everyone's presenting their product. It's like a fair when everyone's comparing pigs in that sense.
Like a science fair.
Like a science fair or something. It was I was envisioning like a barn, and everyone's
gotcha.
Like a county fair.
County
fair. Yeah. Like my pig is fat and healthy, but sure, I don't want to compare. I don't want to compare the
my
five
SK Telehog.
Oh,
wow.
You get my point, right? It's like the final product that you show up and then they can say he had a bad day. It doesn't really work like that. It's that this is Samsung won the World Championship. I think it's undisputed that they are the best team in the world right now.
I love what you said, Yamato, about the idea that SK Telecom can get who they want. When I spoke to Hooney before the season, he told me that he was in shock when they called him because he basically said they can have whoever they want, and they chose me. And he was just absolutely shocked by that. So I agree with you. I don't think these guys are going to have a problem filling some of these holes in the roster, and you've already pointed out a couple of them. Obviously, the jungle has been a big sticking point, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I think for the moment, we sort of want to shift gears to Europe and some of the things that we've seen and that we may see.
Korean off season, there's European off season shenanigans going on. Europe is a bigger deal this year, I think, than years past, just because of not Europe specifically, well, kind of, but also the environment around them and how appealing European players are to North American money, or at least that's what it sounds like right now.
Yeah, well, I guess we got to start by just asking, where do you see the European scene going, in the next year as we head into this season? Something we've been talking a lot about in the office is sort of, I guess, a concern that we might see a lot of European players leaving the region for greener pastures, particularly in NA, where we know that there's going to be, lots of money and lots of offers. And, we just put out a feature this morning. Sasha Irfanian did a long piece talking to a lot of team owners and management in the EU LCS. And it seems like there is a lot of concern that the direction that Riot's taking the league is going to make it difficult to run a business. And I think a lot of players are maybe starting to feel that crunch. Do you think that there's a chance that we're going to see this, I guess, European exodus, that we're going to see a lot of European players leaving?
So the main thing to assess is that, North America already has a shit ton of imports. There's not a lot of import slots that are available, and maybe some players get replaced. There's been some talks about specific players going away, and of course, if we lose 3 of our absolute best, let's say Perks, Mithy, and Sven disappear from Europe, like this means a great deal, right? Because in a sense, they're also making the entire region better because we get to scrim against them and we get to play against them, and that means a lot too, right? So of course, I don't want to undervalue the impact of 3 or 4 amazing players, but in the sense of it, it's important to remember that a lot of import slots are filled up. A lot of import slots are taken up by Koreans. Maybe more slots are going to be taken up by Koreans. That is important to highlight. And, in the grand scheme of things, for sure, Europe is behind in the sense that, North America is already pushing for their franchise league and they're ahead of the curve. And there's been some rumors. I don't know anything about this, there's been some rumors about franchising coming to Europe, and there was this Champions League talk, and I don't know what's to come. But I have faith in the fact that, an exodus might happen, not as harsh as people might think. I think maybe 4 players from top 4 are going to disappear, maybe 5, and that's going to leave a dent. But I don't think it's going to be like, completely empty. There's going to be like these fucking, there's just nothing, deserts, Sahara desert, just empty, and it's just a bunch of players that no one knows about, like solo queue play. No, I don't think it's going to be like that. I think the core of Europe is going to stay. Maybe we'll miss a few of the big names, and that's going to happen. But in all seriousness, I think, the main problem for EU is that it's behind in its thought process about what the future of EU LCS is. And I think it can recover because the player base is bigger in Europe, which at the same time, it gives you the opportunity to produce, I gotta say, 0.0% of 0.0.1%. I don't know what I'm saying, but a very small margin. Yeah. That's a very small margin. I was saying point, but you can't even add any more points than just 1 point.
We got it.
A small margin of the players, that they were, let's say a small margin of the players are fantastic players that can be pro players, and if you have a bigger player base, then automatically this margin is going to be bigger. And I think Europe will continue to come up with good players. I think a franchise system in Europe could be also fantastic, could give the big sports teams, the big football clubs, give them the courage to take a step forward and also invest into this idea. And then all of a sudden, we might have like a World's Finals where Golden State Warriors are playing against Real Madrid or some shit. It could be absolutely crazy, right? And I think with some time, I think Europe is going to recover. I think what is required from everyone right now is patience. I'm going to be patient. I love Europe, and I love League of Legends in general. And I think with time, Europe is going to recover. But I think Europe is definitely going to be behind a couple of years.
What do you think about the possibility of whatever European players go over to NA, like if they do, signing just 1-year deals and then saying like, I'm going to see
how Europe goes.
I'm going to see what happens at the end of this year. Maybe NA is not all it's cut out to be, or maybe this rumored like
maybe Europe gets its shit together.
Maybe Europe just is like a better place to play in a year. Like would you think that's something that could happen?
Yeah, I think people are talking a lot about money. People are talking a lot about money, but it's not only about money. It's the organizations in general tend to be a lot stronger in North America. A lot of teams struggle with having good managers. A lot of teams struggle with having good infrastructure because it's something that is hard to obtain, especially like some of the organizations in the LCS are still very young. And to highlight that, looking at all the powerful organizations and the NBA teams and wherever you have it are coming into the picture, if it's not about the money, then you look at the structure behind it, and they are being supported by some giants, right? And I think that matters too. And hopefully in a franchise system in Europe, you also have these giants coming in that back this up and are a part of the ecosystem to kind of improve the system in Europe. I think this is what is necessary. And I think when it comes to Europe being a better environment or not, I think it depends on team to team. I think saying I'm pretty sure TSM functions differently than C9 does, even though they are in the same region.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to point out. But in all honesty, maybe players come back. I think a lot of players have the mindset of opportunity. They want to, and not every player thinks about, I want to have a bunch of structure behind me and I want to have a lot of money. A lot of players are just thinking, I want to have the best odds to smash some kids at Worlds. And, a lot of players think like this, and this is also important to remember. So as long as, the rosters need to look very attractive in North America in order for people to also be convinced. And I think this is important to highlight too. But I don't think, players in all seriousness, they are business-oriented people. And I think if at any point in time, after they've been in North America for a year, if they find an opportunity that is better elsewhere, there's no reason for them to not take it. I don't think they're going to wave an American flag and pledge fealty. I think it's about, opportunity. And as of right now, the North American organizations are just way more attractive.
Honestly, as long as Europe has Denmark, I'm not super worried for them overall. Although I've been looking at the sort of the North American depth chart, if you will, for a project that we're working on.
Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of great NA mids that are free agents. There are a couple, but I mean, I don't know. I could see some EU mids going over. I don't know.
Who's to say?
I don't know. Just saying. So I guess talking about Europe, it feels like Misfits in many ways have sort of become the darling of European fans given their performance at Worlds. Mm-hmm. And we saw the effects of that because we've had voting for All-Stars.
Yep.
And there's been a very active campaign in favor of Power of Evil.
Yes.
Who honestly, I think proved a lot of people wrong this year.
Yeah.
I honestly think a lot of people had him pegged as being like, well, he's a good mid. He's not a world's class mid. Like he's not really. And I think
he won't win you games. Like very dependable.
That I actually heard people say that specifically.
Yeah.
That he won't win you games, but like maybe he won't lose the lane.
Yeah,
or
that kind of shit.
And I think honestly he has shown this strength at Worlds, but the result of this is that there's been a little bit of controversy about who should be going to Worlds. And I want to get some...
Going to All-Stars.
Sorry, yeah, I don't... Worlds isn't a controversy because it's tournaments. But yeah, who should be going to All-Stars? So we had a Reddit post from G2 psychological coach. Is that his term?
We're going to go with that.
Coach.
We're going to go with that.
I think
I'm sorry.
He's a sports psychology
Sports
trainer,
psychology trainer, right? Weldon Green, who posted about... And I honestly can't tell how serious this Reddit post is. I'm going to be really honest. I don't know if this is like an elaborate joke.
We asked Yamato to study up on it before coming on. Now we need to know if you actually did it.
In fairness to Yamato.
I tried to find it, I just couldn't.
Okay.
Please link it to me. Do you have it?
Yeah, I can link it to you, no problem. Gabe.
So yeah. So the essence of the post obviously is a counter campaign against Power of Evil by Weldon to kind of communicate and discuss what the perks of perks, if you will.
Yes, perks of perks.
And Mythi in particular, and those two players and why they should be ahead.
I wonder if it got removed. I'm trying to find it.
Power of Evil and Ignar. YamatoCannon, I think first things first, if we're going to talk EU All-Stars, I need to know who are your five. Like, just off the bat, if you needed to construct an EU All-Stars team, like, what would be your vote for 5 players?
I would put Alfari, Jankos, Perks, Ignar, and then I think Sven deserves to go, for once.
Okay.
It's a tough one between
Sure.
reckless and Sven. I think it can be argued both, but
so you're on the Misfits hype train kind of too, right? Why Alfari in particular? Because that's an interesting pick.
You know, I love my boy Soaz. You know, I think he's a fantastic player. You know, his legacy is amazing. I think he's one of the best Western players of all time. I think in the current meta, and I think Alfari as a player, I think he's more diverse, and I think that can matter more in a scenario where you're throwing in a bunch of players that are just going to play together. I think individuality is going to be more focused on. I think. You know, if someone told me Soaz over Alfari, I think it's 100% understandable. But Alfari as a player has impressed me quite a lot in terms of his performance at the World Championship, where he took what he made of the opportunity to be in the LCS for the first year of his life. And I think he's been fantastic, and I look forward to seeing him next year. And if someone told me Soaz over Alfari, you know, God bless you, I would agree with that point too. I think it's a close tie.
Okay.
He sounds like the kind of player you'd like to coach too, Yamato, because when we spoke to him, he said that he's
literally last week.
Yeah,
right?
He's very comfortable with working with a coach, which is something that maybe not a lot of players or not every player has.
Not just comfortable working with a coach, but comfortable in putting like full trust in a coach to just like make him do whatever, right? Like he was saying, like, you know, I'll have input on like the kinds of picks that I can play, right? But I'll totally cede to the coach on what is best for the team in these situations, right? I think that kind of like selfless nature, it's not something we hear about a lot from players, right? When we hear about pick and ban stuff from interviews, people always say like, you know, it's not all on the coach. It's very 50-50. Like players often give their picks to the coaching. The coach is like, yeah, sure, like choose that. Yeah. And in the case of Alfari and Misfits, he says like, no, coach tells me what to play, I'll do it. I'll do it for the team, whatever style, whatever role. I think that's pretty admirable.
I think the main thing as well is that Alfari, looking at his LCS experience, I think Hussein comes across as a great coach. I think the progress that they have gone through, I think you have to accredit that to the coaching staff. I know from their players, they speak very highly of their sports psychologists as well. I think there's a lot of credit to be had, and I don't think it's something that is global, that he's, no matter what, he's going to trust his coach no matter what. I think it's also the relationship he has between his current coach and looking back at his past experience. I don't know if they had coaches when they were playing the UK Premiership, ESL League or whatever it's called. I don't think. And, it's important to remember that his experience with coaches has probably been very good, and I don't think it's something that stretches. I think this is about a relationship between a player and the coach. And I think no matter what players say, I think this can be achieved with anyone. I don't think it's necessarily about mentality of a player. Like, I am coming in here and I want to be coach. I don't think necessarily anyone thinks like that. I think it's more about, this is a guy I respect and I can trust. And that is something much more intimate than just, he has the title of coach and I'm a player. And I think it stretches far beyond that, and I think it's about mutual respect.
I mean, that works for me. I think seemingly they have it, which is great.
Yeah.
It's great to see. Honestly, I think that in the future we're going to see that dynamic evolve a lot. I think
become more mature, probably.
Maybe. I think that it could change in a lot of ways, so it's not clear to me exactly how it will change, but I'm excited to watch it because it's still very different, from other examples of coaching, and I feel, especially in certain esports, it's like completely different. So,
and honestly, like when more money is involved, like, and those stakes are kind of raised in that way, that does add an element to that dynamic.
Yeah.
Where because there's more at stake, people kind of take it. I'm not saying people don't take it seriously now, but take it more seriously.
It's like an added layer, sort of. Yeah,
absolutely.
I feel that. So why don't we? Can we talk a little bit about All Stars generally, just to leave off? I know we got to let you go pretty soon, YamatoCannon, but this year we're seeing an approach from Riot where we want to make this more of a serious event.
Right.
It's not going to be the 5-on-5 blitzcrank situation,
or like the one player on keyboard, one player on mouse kind of
and
stuff.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't really care about All-Stars either way. I think it's a great gesture to have these teams and to be like, we think this is our best. But at the end of the day, is this really, like, we know we're not going to see the best play in the region out of this team because they just aren't practicing together. So in my opinion, it's kind of like, yes, let's honor these players. Let's show them that we think they are the best in their region. But the event itself really just doesn't hold any sort of like excitement for me, really. I don't know any other takes on that.
I know. I kind of agree with you in the perspective of like, oh, we honor these players. These players are, the best in their field, in their region.
Yeah.
Why don't we reward them by forcing a very serious tournament down their throats during a season, during a time where they should be taking a vacation and probably resting up to continue that form and continue that play for their region, right? I think it's like, I don't know, man. It's the same problem I had with Rift Rivals. If you guys go back into the iTunes, SoundCloud archives of our podcast, we talked about Rift Rivals a pretty long time ago, and I was saying I loved the like old Rift Rivals format that was like the crew battles type stuff where it wasn't really, it was still kind of like for fun and there was some stakes to it, some bragging rights to it. And now, they change it to a serious tournament because like a bunch of people were up in arms about how it wasn't serious. And now, even though it was a serious tournament that we, like the public, changed to a serious tournament, people don't give a shit about Rift Rivals because they think it doesn't matter because they think those bragging rights are moot. So like, this is the same problem I have with All-Stars where it's like, it's taking this thing that's supposed to be for fun, that's actually can be entertaining beyond just having like a normal tournament, especially because you have this configuration of all-star teams that can do cool things aside from giving their 100% against each other. And like, again, just like not having a vacation is
you
just
got to think
trash
about,
for these people. Like it sucks.
You got to think about what the year looks like now if you're a top player in your region, right? Like you're starting your season at the beginning of the year, you play spring split, you play playoffs, there's Rift Rivals as well, you play the summer split, you go to playoffs, you go immediately to boot camp for
maybe
Worlds.
there used to be IEMs too.
There used to be IEMs, you're going and then you finish the summer split. I mean, especially this year, you finish the summer split, and if you have to play the gauntlet, heaven forbid, basically just immediately into boot camp, immediately into Worlds
for a month and a half.
Worlds
was a month and a half, by the way, everyone.
And now we're
how
saying,
crazy is that?
Yeah.
and now we're saying we need to have another serious.
What is that? When All Stars is pretty soon too, right? It's like a week and 2 weeks.
It's the 7th December.
7th, so a month.
But what's your take on the current All Stars format, Yamato? And like, what do you think the value is to fans or to players?
I really, really don't like it. I feel like it's to some degree, I feel like it's, I don't know. It's just players, the Twitter's going to be filled with like, yeah, guys, I didn't practice much. This is what Twitter's going to be filled with. Someone's going to screw up, someone's going to, I think some players are excited to be sent because some players tend to be very active during the off season and are excited to go. And some of those exist, but some of those also exist that they want to just chill and relax. And either way, it's a tournament we can't take anything away from. I think the previous format was fun. I think the 1v1 was interesting. It was a different aspect to it. It was like, it gave you bragging rights in some degree, but at the same time, people didn't read too much into it. It was fun. Riot had the opportunity to do a bunch of fun shit with it too. I was at the analyst desk at IWCA 2016, I think it was, maybe 15, I might be wrong. And I had a lot of fun with that because it was a whack tournament. It was 1v1s, and I was just memeing around, and I was like a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of a tournament fits better because you get all the good parts of a serious tournament anyway. And I don't think, if you want to pull something off like this, then just replace Rift Rivals with a serious all-star tournament, and there you go. Do it in the middle of a season, take the best players from the teams, and then make them clash. And that could be really interesting because it's in the heat of it. People are like in shape, and then they just get thrown in together without any obligation to feel like, hey, we need to practice together or something like this. Everyone is under the same condition. I feel like a lot of teams are going to have different approaches to it, and I think a lot of players also have different approaches to it. I'm pretty sure people will run into the situation where, like, two of our players just didn't give a fuck, so it was hard. It was hard for us to do well. It was hard for us to practice, and these players that won't give a fuck, I can't blame them, right? Well, what is the gain? There's no brag rights. Sure, maybe there's some brag rights. You can have a lot of fun with it. You meet players that maybe you don't have an opportunity to meet often, and the overall conclusion for me is that there's no prize money. Sure, there's a small vacation in Los Angeles, but other than that, I think if they want to have a serious tournament like this, I think it needs to be, this is something that could be, it fits to have it during MSI, but I would much rather have MSI than than this tournament.
I just want to add like how irreconcilable it is for Riot to be saying like, let's have this serious tournament in this off season when they just release like one of the biggest freaking preseason updates that just throws the game out of whack entirely, right? Like, how are you supposed to actually do that when you have all this new shit going on for season 8? So
I forgot about that completely. It's funny because maybe that is the fun part of Rift Rival. They just thought that if they add fun elements to it intentionally, maybe it's too fun.
Yeah.
So
this is going to be unintentionally fun as a result of the Runes Reforged. I also have like a really funny secondary thing about All Stars that EU is dooming themselves because they're the 5 All Stars that they're sending to LA are just going to get into LA, do All Stars, but also do like contract negotiations with NALCS teams while they're there.
It's like a defection. It's like when Cuban baseball players go to play tournaments in the United States.
Yeah, they just don't come back.
They just never come back. I'm sorry. No, Jesus. No, I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, but at the end of the day, it's like I don't think we can expect games like what you said, Yamato. Can we expect games that tell us anything?
No.
Probably not. So that's.
Oh, I think you want my prediction?
Yes.
I think China's gonna win.
Ooh, because they'll take it the most seriously.
Yeah,
I don't know. Have you heard? Have you guys heard of all the stuff that's happening in China? Where
people are pissed.
People are so pissed with like how the voting's going because apparently there's some rumors about people actually like bribing others with like real life yuan and RP and like goodies from teams in order to vote for their players to go.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right, Yamato. I think China's gonna win because they really care about it for some reason.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I was talking about player bases earlier, and China has the biggest one ever, and they have some individually fantastic players. I think looking at like if Kondi gets sent, Uziai, and whoever the hell support, the supports. I guess you would send Mako, or I don't know. I think individually they are fantastic, and I think they are furious, and I think they have a lot to prove coming into this tournament.
Totally.
And I would put my money there.
Yamato, I know that we got to let you go. I want to ask if there's anything else that you want to mention or any messages you want to give to your fans. Maybe anything you're working on that you want to plug?
No. Like, all in all, like I wanted to add a point about you saying that things will improve with time. I think it was about coaches being better and better. And I think, a big motivation for me has been always that there's so many people in esports that just don't belong, and I can feel how they are slowly disappearing, and man, it feels good. Because there was a time where you worked really hard and people that were acting like snakes and rats, they were just continuing to survive on like cockroaches. And I mentioned 3 types of vermin, but my point is, I am happy that esports is going forward in that direction, that everything is becoming more serious. And I am not regretting one moment in my life that I've worked towards this for 7 years of my life now. And I feel really fortunate that esports is the way it is, that League of Legends is the way it is. And I'm happy that all the vermin are dying out, and that is really important to me because there was a long period of time where managers were like this, coaches were like this, and I think that tainted the role that is a manager or that is a coaches. And I've had the privilege of meeting people that are fantastic people and also the opposite. I don't know what the word of opposite of privilege is, but the opposite of a privilege to meet people that just are downwards destructive towards the scene. And I'm happy that these people are getting filtered out. And I'm happy that I was a part of the first official coach split. And hopefully, you talked about how coaches will be more established. And I hope, and my dream is to be one of those big greats within League of Legends esports, as one of the big great coaches, as in other traditional sports like Jose Mourinho, Sir Alex Ferguson, or whatever it is. This is my dream. So the next time we are talking and you ask me what I'm going to do next, is going to be coaching as well.
Well, hey, that's awesome, and I'm hoping that what you say about coaching and about coach careers generally is true. I think it's been a huge benefit. Gabe very biased because he is the coach for the U of T collegiate LoL team. But I hope that what you're saying is true, and I think you're right that it has done a tremendous amount of good for the scene and can continue to do that in the future. Yamato, hey, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to us.
Yes,
we really
absolutely.
appreciate it. I know you're busy and you made some time. So thanks again, and you know what? We'd love to have you back on the podcast at a later date if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
This has been great.
Sure, man. Sure. Thank you very much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I expected more like an interview, but I like the fact that we were just chilling and talking.
Oh, totally.
I like this type of atmosphere, and I had a lot of fun. Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Of course. Good.
Thanks
Have a good night, yeah?
Good luck on finding a charity for the revenue from the videos.
Do you guys have any recommendations? Maybe I can look into something. Maybe you guys can write me.
The UNHCR, UN High Commission on Refugees. I think that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I think we got to
write it to me.
All right, yeah, we'll send you an email. Thanks so much, Yamato.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Wow.
That was hype.
I think we could have talked for like a lot longer.
Yeah, we were like, this is too interesting.
He's a busy guy though. Like it was hard. We just needed to work out a time. Thankfully, we did it. So
yeah.
I mean,
hey, we can carry it over to the next one, right?
Yeah,
Definitely.
no, there's more stuff. We could go in depth on coaching, for example. I think that's an easy. But anyways, I'm not going to plan a podcast that probably isn't going to happen for some time. So Sean, this is your inaugural appearance on the podcast.
He really took a step back on this one. He was like,
no, he asked some good questions.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't. Do you feel like you took a step back? Like
No. It was fun. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy that we had you and we were able to vindicate Gabe because
Is that what we did?
honestly, I just if I was in your position, Gabe, I'd be shouting it from the rooftops that I called.
I am. I just don't do it on this podcast, but I'm glad that I have an advocate, an ally, and accomplice in Josh, and that's why we're gonna go with the Colin coup next week. Is that what's happening?
No.
Depose
Colin will never be back
Wetsy.
on.
I didn't say that, and just because I'm hosting this does not mean I'm masterminding any sort of coup attempt in any way. So I'm gonna just quietly step out of the conspiratorial boardroom, and I guess I'm gonna say for myself, Gabriel Zoltan Johan,
Hey,
Sean Wetzlar.
See you guys.
See you next time.
cheers.